Alabama Moon, Chapter 40, page 227. The clouds slid over my upturned eyes the rest of the afternoon. Just before sunset, the sky cleared and buzzards encircled me. "You might just want me this time," I said. As the forest grayed, a coon waddled up to the leash chain and pawed at it. When I stood, it scampered away in surprise. I took off the leash and felt my neck where there was a ring of swollen skin. Looking at my wrist, I saw where the handcuffs had worn me raw enough to bleed in places. I rolled over a nearby log and gathered some slugs. By rubbing their slime on my wrist, it made them slippery enough to pull out of the handcuffs. Using the stars, I got my bearings and set out through the forest. In 45 minutes, I was staring at the windows of Mr. Wellington's lodge. I watched until I saw him get up from a chair and walk into the kitchen. He came back shortly with a drink and sat down. I stepped from the forest and approached his door. He opened the door before I knocked and stared down at me like he'd been expecting me a long time before. "What do you plan on doing now?" he asked me. "I'm ready for the law to come get me and take me back to jail." "The last time I saw the law, he was chasing you through the forest." I stared at Mr. Wellington blankly. "Come on," he said, motioning me to slip inside. Mr. Wellington pointed for me to sit on the sofa, and he sat across from me in a chair. The clock ticked over his fireplace, and moss thumped against the window screens. "I'll take you in the morning," he said. I nodded and looked down at my knees. "The constable's got problems. I've encountered men like him before. You don't need to be around him." "He won't let me alone." Mr. Wellington picked up the drink he left on the table and took a sip. He set it back down, and I felt him studying me. "Did you do all those things he said you did?" "I didn't do the part about eating the dogs and shooting at him." "Why would he make up things like that?" "I whipped up on him a couple times. Maybe that's why." "What does that mean?" "Means I licked him." Mr. Wellington scratched his chin. "You licked him, huh?" "He wouldn't let me alone." "But you didn't shoot him or eat his dogs?" "No, sir." "Where are the dogs?" "At my friend's house. He lives near a place called Union at Clay Pit." "Is this the other boy who escaped with you?" "Yes, sir." "How about the gun?" "Which one?" "Whichever one he thinks you shot at him with." "I left it in the forest." "Out there where you had you today?" "No, that's where I told him it was. I lied." Mr. Wellington sat forward in his chair. "He wanted you to get it for him?" I nodded. "Why would he want it so bad?" "'Cause it's his, I guess. I wished he'd give me back the gun he took from me." Mr. Wellington sat back and chuckled to himself. "First of all, kid, they can't put you in jail. At least, not for long. You're too young. I don't know what Sanders has planned for you, but he's been getting the general public riled up about you for some time now. I've got a feeling I know what he's got planned for me. Well, I've been a lawyer long enough to know that his legal options are limited. However, this is not your typical situation. His father happens to be the judge. That can complicate things. This Sanders fellow is a bully and a bigot. He's got a chip on his shoulder that's probably been there since he was a child. He's unintelligent, and he's mean, and he's in a position of power. That's a bad combination to be facing." I didn't reply. "Not to mention that you seem to have caused irreparable damage to his pride." "What's that mean?" "It means you're going to need some help." "I don't need help from anybody. He can't do anything to me I care about. He's going to go after Kit if he doesn't get his hands on me." Mr. Wellington sighed and stood up. He walked into the kitchen, and I heard him turn on the faucet. When he returned, he held out a glass of water to me. I took it, and he sat back down in his chair. "You know why I came after you today?" "No, sir." I feel responsible for a lot of what's going on with you. I'm not going to stand for that constable and his ways, especially on my property. I never thought it would turn out like this." "How'd you know I was out there?" "The chime sounded that lets me know somebody's coming up my road. When no one showed up, I drove out and found Sanders' car. I figured he was up to no good when I saw your footprints with his." I was quiet for a minute. Finally I said, "You lied to me. Every grown person I've known has lied to me except Mr. Mitchell and Obregon and Mr. Carter. You're right. Even though it wasn't a technical lie, I lied to you all the same. I'm sorry about that. I was lonely. I'd had gone away if you wanted. I know. The first thing that came to my mind wasn't the right choice. I could have talked to you, and I could have been your friend. Yes, sir. I've got too much money. I thought I could buy my way above the general human condition. But when you get old and retire and live alone, you realize you're not any different. Sometimes you're worse off. I don't know about any of that. Mr. Wellington nodded to himself. That's all right. You know, I've been following your story on the television and in the papers. I've defended enough criminals to know a little about character. I had my doubts all along that you were all they said you were. I'll give them feisty and hard to hold, but the other things Davy Sanders is putting on you, I already told you he lied. I'm going to help you, Moon. And it's not just for your sake, but for my own as well. You might just go along with me because I don't see that you've got anything to lose. I don't care what you do, I said. Then why don't you go in the bathroom and clean up while I fix you a sandwich? Then you can get some sleep in the guest bedroom. We got a big day ahead of us.